everybody, and welcome once again to the UnLearnT podcast. I am your host, Ruth Abigail, aka RA, and this is the podcast that is helping you gain the courage to change your mind so that you can experience just a little bit more freedom. And we are in our series called UnLearning Entrepreneurship. And so during this, I'm talking to some entrepreneurs that have been in the game at different stages and do different things, really because I hear so many people saying they want to be entrepreneurs, they want to start something. And my first reaction is to say, I don't know that you do. And because there's a lot of things that are true about entrepreneurship that on the front side of it looks amazing, but on the back side of it can be a different story, and it's not for everybody. And but maybe it is for you. And so I just thought this would be an interesting conversation because there are a lot of people out there, especially since COVID, who have become entrepreneurs, and then there are a lot of people who have unbecome entrepreneurs. And so, man, I have my friend, mentor, former boss, and he is the first person to take a chance and hire me here in Memphis, Tennessee. It is Mr. Reggie Davis.
Good afternoon, RA. What a pleasure. What a pleasure.
Man, it's good. It is so good to be with you on this podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
Yeah. So Reggie, we met in 2010. It's a long time, man.
Wow. 2010. RA. Wow. 14 years ago.
That's wild. That's wild.
You were a young baby straight out of college.
Well,
Okay.
I don't know if that's the right terminology.
I mean,
right.
perspective. I love that. Perspective is huge in this world.
No, man. I was young. I was a baby adult, and you said yes to me when I had absolutely no experience in what it is that I was doing. None. So I appreciate that. I would say that you have been entrepreneurial ever since I met you, because of that kind of a trait. Because being an entrepreneur, you got to take chances. I mean,
True.
right? I mean, like that's the name of the game, right? Is taking chances.
Yeah.
And if you're risk averse, that's going to be a little rough.
It is. It is. When you brought that up, it took me back. And do you remember my original thoughts I had about you before I met you? Do you remember? Do you remember me?
I'm not sure this is going to come up. I didn't know this was going to come up.
I didn't plan on it, but when you said it, I was like, "Oh, this is pretty cool." Part of our story, though, right?
Yeah.
So for those who are listening, we were starting the nonprofit had been around, but we were starting a new site at the most diverse high school in the city of Memphis. And my first two hires were two female, which I was very proud about, but they were two white female. And I got this email about this amazing person named Ruth Abigail Smith, and da 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 da. And she went to Furman University, and I'm putting all the things together in my head, like, okay, double name, Ruth Abigail Smith, Furman University. I'm looking at the resume. I was like, I can't hire another white female. I just I'm trying to be diverse here, and I can't have my first three hires be white female. So I said, but I'll meet her, right? Like she looks sharp. Her resume looks great. Everything, I'll meet her. And man, you stepped around that corner and I was like frozen, like, is Ruth Abigail? But I'm so glad I had that meeting though.
I think it's important for the people to know that you ignored me for a good 2 months.
Was it 2 months?
It was a while. It was a while. And I got ghosted on the emails. Ghosted. Like, just stopped hearing from him. And so, no. You know what? I get it. I totally get it. And at first I was like, man, who is this dude that just ain't gonna respond back? Ain't you supposed to be in a ministry? Y'all supposed to be nice. And and nothing. I didn't hear nothing, And then we met, and within the first 2 minutes of us sitting down, he told me this, and we just fell out, man. And that was it.
That
That
was
was
it. Man,
that
that
was
was it. Because I was like, okay, I got to be honest with her, right? Like, I gotta share this with her. And again, I don't know if I was intentionally ghosting you, but I was I didn't know what to do with it. I was like, okay, I don't want to say no to her because her resume looks great, but like, let me see if I can find some other candidates. Uh, and what's crazy is there were people. Well, I never said that. Like in my head, I think she must be white, right? So the people who knew you, they didn't say, "Oh yeah, and she's a black female." But yeah, look, I'm so glad we ended up having that meeting at I believe it may have been Starbucks. And and look, one of the best hires of my life I've ever made.
Man, look, it was one of the best decisions I made was working for you, and because you are you truly have been entrepreneurial the whole time. I've even though
Mm,
in title or in experience it may not have looked that way, but the way you moved was always entrepreneurial to me. And being in the environment under your leadership, I felt like
mm,
I could do that same thing. And so
well,
you so let's just kind of bring people into. You are the founder owner of a consulting company called Uplift, and that started when.
we actually started it, came up with the name in 2020. Spending a lot of time at home in between virtual Zoom meetings, and just 2019. Though I got to share this part. 2019, a friend of mine who had come to some of those. I just called them conversations for change meetings that I was hosting around Memphis. Right, he had come to a couple of these, and this was a white male friend of mine. And he calls me one day in 2019 and said, "Hey, we're looking for somebody to facilitate conversations around DE, and I recommended you." And I was like, "Well, Mark, you know I don't do this for a living." And he said, "But you should." And I'll be honest with you, Ari. I was like, "Man, this dude has lost his mind. Like, I'm not a business owner. I'm not a starter. Like, I've spent 20 years in the nonprofit sector, and that's kind of that's my lane now, right?" I really felt like that's my lane. And but it never left me, right? The thought of it, like, can I do this? And then 2020, I was like, well, let me at least think of a name. And then, okay, let me at least submit something to the IRS. Well, let me at least do this with the state of Tennessee. And I kept doing all these pieces. And before I knew it, it was like, okay, I have a business now. Now, am I going to do it?
Wow, I don't think I knew that part um, of that part of the origin story. Like, I want to go to something because I think what you said was key. You said, I've spent 20 years in the nonprofit industry. This is this is my lane now. Like, this is it. So it was that automatic assumption that was, I've been in this for 20 years. I, I mean, move, do something different. Why? Like, I mean, this is what I'm doing. I mean, how did that, like, that shift, right, which is a pretty different shift. Now, that's not to say you can't be entrepreneurial in the nonprofit sector, but we're talking about moving into a for-profit situation, which is
Right,
different. And
right.
also, being a real owner founder of a company, which is different. What kind of mental loops did you have to kind of kill to get you from here to there?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there were a lot.
Yeah.
Ruth Abigail, this journey was not easy in terms of overcoming my own mindset.
Mm.
Truthfully, like that was the I will still say that has been the largest hurdle, and still can be the largest hurdle,
Yeah.
is getting out of my own way.
Mm.
Um, and so you hear these stories of these entrepreneurs and people who start businesses and all these great things, and even to what you said, like I was doing entrepreneurial tactics and being an entrepreneur even in the non not for profit space, but I wouldn't have called it that. It was just I'm doing ministry, right? I'm just doing ministry, and I'm trying to lead well, and I'm trying to do all these things. And I can look back now and say, oh my gosh, like I
Mm.
learned so many so much during that time. How to like navigate relationships, how to, recruit volunteers, how to, ask for support, funding, and it was all these different things. And now I can look back and go, wow, I see it now. But I had the hardest moment for me was thinking that I could be an entrepreneur. Because one, I never thought about being an entrepreneur. Like,
Right.
never had dreams. Never wanted to start something, you know. Uh, and I used to say, like, I'm good at being a part of something that's already established and enhancing it. That was my MO. I enhance what's already there.
Mm.
And literally I was sitting in church one Sunday about to preach, and I felt the spirit say to me, if you get out of my way, I'll blow your mind.
Mm.
And my little days of being a musician back in the day in Arkansas, I was like trying to think of the song. What song is it? I know that's in the song. And it kind of went away, and I heard it again. If you get out of my way, I'll blow your mind.
Mm.
My second question was, okay, is this you, God, or is this just me?
Mhm.
Right? Because I have to ask myself that sometimes.
Yeah.
And then I heard it again. And at this point, I was like, okay, I'm not even sure what this means, because I thought I had been not in your way and doing exactly what you wanted me to do for the last, whatever that was, 14, 15 years of my life. And now you're telling me to get out of your way. And I understand now, like, I want to actually use you in this business. And the business is in your hands. I'm putting it in your hands. You're going to grow this business, and you're still going to be as effective in the lives of people as you were doing ministry.
Mm.
And as a matter of fact, it is ministry, but it's a business and it's a for profit business. And I had to get over that, honestly. All right. Like, making money.
Well, I'm glad you went there because I was gonna go there, but I would love to go in this direction. Because let me just all right. So I get, which is honestly again what I said in the beginning, like why I wanted to do this series is because I get a lot of people, um, that young people, and to be quite frank, a lot of them that are working in the nonprofit space, they're a little disillusioned by the work for
Mm.
whatever reason, and they're like, man, I want to start my own thing, and I do my and if anybody's listening to this, you know this is true. That if I have said this to you, like I said, I don't know that you do. I'm saying a little tongue in cheek,
Mm.
but I genuinely am like, I don't know if you do, because I've done that. Like I've been a co-founder of a nonprofit. I've been, and God has been incredibly gracious. We have been around for 10 years, which is mind blowing,
Hmm.
and we're still moving, still growing. Our story is rare, quite frankly. That is not the case for most nonprofits. So, but it's very hard. You don't realize what you're getting into, and a lot of the reasoning behind it has to do more so of where you're leaving than where you're going,
Yeah.
and that's not a good way reason to go. No, to start something, right? But I'll have this conversation, and a lot of times one of the reasons that people are disillusioned by the nonprofit space is the money you're making. It's like I'm not making enough in this work. I want to go start my own thing. Well, and I'm like, hey man, like, let me tell you something. You think you ain't making nothing now? You want to go start your own thing? It's going to be even more hard to start making that kind of money,
Yeah.
and certainly not immediately. But also, the other answer I've given people, and this is what from 10 years of doing it, um, I've said, the truth of the matter is we have in Memphis. That's my context. That's what I'll speak to.
Hmm.
We have a ton of nonprofits. We have a lot of them. We have the highest nonprofit capital in the U.S. as far as I know.
Yeah.
Um, and don't start a nonprofit. I will say, like, I wouldn't do that. I would start a business, and then fund a nonprofit, which is business,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so that's the kind of advice I try to give now, and I can see the twinge on people's
Mm.
faces. It's like because of what you and I already know because I'm usually familiar with the people I'm talking to, but I want to do ministry, and ministry doesn't equal money, and
Mm.
that feels weird.
Mm.
I want to know how you how you got over that hurdle. I think a lot of us
Mm,
get over the hurdle that being in ministry means you have to take a vow of poverty. It nor does it mean that you are and that you're always stuck in this box that equals low pay. It might, and that's not a bad thing, but does it have to be right?
yeah.
In order to call it ministry, I want to know how you got over that hurdle, and what are still some of the things that are still a little unnerving about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's a great question. So how did I get over it? I think time,
Mm,
honestly. Growing up in rural Arkansas with not a lot, like I still, Kim and I, we still had these moments where we talk about, like when I married Kim, and I think I've told you this, but when I married Kim at the age of 25, this was a woman who was 9 years older than me, had her own house, had her own car. She was INDEP, she was independent, right? And here I am walking out of my parents' home, which was a trailer home, a house filled with love, but it was a trailer home. And we go get married. I leave that Friday. We get married on Saturday. And I go to our house, which was her house, on Sunday. And I promise you I'm going somewhere with this. And so we finished opening the gifts with her mom and her sister. And I say, hey, I'm going out to the car to get my stuff. I had a little two-seater sports car. I come back with my piece of luggage, and three suits over my shoulder. I go put it up. She had cleared out a,
mm,
a ton of space in drawers for me. And I put my stuff away, and I come back in and I sit down, and she was like, you need some help getting the rest of your stuff? I was like, no, that's it. So I mean, I came, from a lot of love. I like my parents taught me about God. They taught me about loving your neighbors and all these things, but I came from nothing. So like doing nonprofit work and not having a lot most of the time, right, was just that's what I knew. And
yeah.
so it was like, okay. And in the back of my head, I gotta be honest with you, I don't think I thought that I could be as committed in my faith with money.
Come on. Pause there. Pause there. Pause there. Let's talk about that. Why? What scared you about that?
I think some of it was the things you heard growing up, in the black church sometimes. Like, you just heard things, you know, about the love of money, right? And I know the full scripture, but we didn't hear the full scripture all the time. We heard the love of money.
Yep.
And really, a lot of times the love of money was left out. It was almost like money. And so most of the folks who I knew that loved the Lord didn't have anything.
Mm,
They had their faith. They had their passion for Christ and living holy, but they didn't like we didn't. And this isn't a knock on my parents because I'm telling you, like I'm not who I am without them. But we didn't go on vacations. Uh, our vacation was the church convention. You know what I mean? And so, like in my head, being devout in your faith and having money didn't resonate. It didn't connect at all.
that
And
is
so
whew.
And
I,
then and wait, and then you spend 15 years doing Christian nonprofit youth ministry, which let's be honest, you hear things that's not said to you, but said at you.
yeah.
Like, if you're really called to this, why would you need a raise? um, or look, my first week of doing youth ministry, nonprofit work in Memphis, my then supervisor had purchased a used Lexus SUV. A donor told him that it didn't look good for him to drive a luxury car like that. So he went and traded in the Lexus pre-owned SUV for a newer, better looking, more expensive Toyota 4Runner, but it was a Toyota.
Yeah.
So don't have a perception of having a luxury car when you're doing nonprofit ministry. Even if the car costs more, it doesn't need to look like. And so here I am, my first week on the job, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, I better not look like I have anything.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
those seeds get planted, and now like when it's time for God to take you in a different direction, man, that's 30 years, 35 years of things you've listened, unlearning. Come on, I had to unlearn.
Yeah, I mean, you was on the unlearned journey for a while. That's real. Like you have to. That is real, and I think that hurdle, that money hurdle. Man, that ain't even in our notes. That's not in my. I don't even have that on here. But I just think this is such an important part of the
Yeah.
conversation in order to understand how do you kind of progress in a way that that is still God honoring, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but enjoying the fruits of your labor. There's nothing wrong with that. And
You know?
I know because I've heard the same things, right? And I've had to unlearn some of those same perceptions, right? Of I'm totally honest. Doing this podcast, it
Mm,
took me. I had to get through a mental hurdle to even do this,
mm,
right? Because there is there's a opportunity for income through this podcast. Which, if I'm
hmm
honest, I'm not. It's not why I'm doing it, but if it happens, praise God. I ain't mad. I ain't giving it back, right?
Hey,
So I but it's like I don't want people to. It's I have to go through this. I don't want anybody to think um I'm trying to do extra, be extra, whatever. Or I don't want anybody to think I'm starting this business and I'm going off on this path where I'm not
mm,
focused on ministry anymore. And I don't I had to unlearn that myself and just
yeah.
get out there and jump and do it because this is what he put in me. I'm gonna do
Yeah.
it. And what people's opinions are less relevant, right, than following God. But that unlearning process is so crucial when it comes to this money conversation
Mm,
when you're coming out of when you're coming out of ministry, right?
it is. It is. And but like how can we talk about entrepreneurship without talking about money though? I mean, who goes to start a business and say, I don't need to make no money. I just want to do this business. Period. Like,
Well,
no,
sometimes,
like, that's
yeah,
part of the process.
that's part of the process. That's part of the process. If you're not focused on the money part of business, and we'll say money, let's just say on the investing and investment, right, of it, because it's really a business is about growing. It's about like we're giving something in order to gain something. It's a
Yes.
transactional investment to make something better. And so this in this case, it looks like money is the resource that we use to invest. And so I think we put so much energy into this money thing. It's really and I go back to uh the verse or the parable of the help me out preacher
Which one? Solar,
so or the one oh the
yeah.
talents.
Okay.
And so even that parable, right?
Yeah.
That the one who didn't think about it as a business was the one that Jesus said,
I got a problem with you.
"Man, I don't want to have nothing to do with you. Like,
Yeah.
give me my stuff back. Let me give it to somebody who knows what they're doing."
Yeah.
It's really interesting because when we think about the way that even Jesus talked about business and investment and harvesting and reaping in the Bible, it is from that mindset of take something, grow it, like into something more, right?
Yeah.
And constantly is using that. And for whatever reason, we have, and I think I don't know, maybe it's an American thing, and we don't have to be on here this whole time. But I just think this is
No.
such a great part of the conversation to help people unlearn who are in ministry, who might want to go into business or might want to go into an entrepreneurial venture. That this is a part of the mental process that might be stopping you from doing that.
Exactly. And could look, I think our life is about seasons, right? And sometimes we stay in seasons too long
Come on.
because they're comfortable, right? Let's just be honest. It's very comfortable to do something, and whether you get accolades for being whatever, it just becomes comfortable, right?
Yep.
And we don't like, as human beings, for the most part, we don't like discomfort and we don't like being inconvenienced. Becoming an entrepreneur will take you out your comfort zone and it will inconvenience you at times, right? But I will tell you, man, God positioned these nuggets that I needed when I started this business. And so somebody sent me a podcast or YouTube video, and this brother was talking about David. No, Solomon, talking about King Solomon, right? So King Solomon, literally, kings would pay Solomon to come get advice from him. Now you're talking about somebody who's getting ready to go into consulting, right? And I almost felt like, truthfully, I care about what I'm doing. Like I genuinely care. I was doing it before somebody ever offered me a dime. Just asking people, let's sit down and talk about this, right? And so now somebody's saying, I'll pay you for it. I struggle. Wait. If this is something that God has put in my heart and He's put in my mind, should I make money from that? And then, like, somebody sent me this video, and this guy's saying, "Well, look, God, God allowed King Solomon to be where he was, and yet people paid him. It was money and cattle and other things to receive advice from him, including the Queen of Sheba. Right? She came with a whole lot of stuff.
Yep.
I just need to sit at your feet and hear what you got to say. Right?
That's right.
Solomon didn't say, "No, I'm good. I got enough." And hear me. Let's don't get it twisted. I'm not some millionaire yet.
Amen. Come on.
I always like saying that because I used to have a problem saying that I could be a millionaire. Now I don't, because if that's what God has for me, I want it. So, but I'm doing what I honestly feel like God purposed me to do before I was born, Ruth Abigail.
Yeah.
And if entrepreneurship is that for someone, and again, I'll be the first to tell you, maybe entrepreneurship is not for everyone, but if that seed is planted in you, go for it.
Yeah.
Right? Go for it. And be ready for all the things that come with it, including, you know, not having a limited salary.
That's it. I think so. I've listened to. I don't know if you've heard of a business coach named Myron Golden.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
I thought that's who you were talking about because I've heard it and I've heard other people. I've heard so many of his kind of like proteges
Yeah.
speak and reference. I was like, I bet this man is talking about. I didn't want to assume.
It,
That's my guy, man. I've been following him for the last couple of years. The man is absolutely brilliant. Um,
listen, can we stop there for a second and say, if somebody think think they may want to be an entrepreneur,
mm,
go on YouTube and listen to Myron Golden speak. Here's my deal. I can't tell you one person that 100% of everything they say, I'm just like, look, I hope you don't like 100% of what I say, but I hope I can say something that might inspire you, that may be may water a seed that's already planted. And I'm telling you, if you want to be an entrepreneur, if he don't plant a seed, he gonna do some watering.
man, I Myron Golden, for those of you that don't know, is a entrepreneur business coach. It has been for a while, um,
Yes.
for decades, and he's also he's a former pastor, and so I think the thing that I appreciate most about him, I appreciate a few things, but one of the things is like his practicality
Mm,
uh, of really helping people to understand biblical truths, right,
mm.
that apply across the board to your whole life, but
Yes.
more specifically to business.
Yes.
And so he is, yeah, the guy is absolutely brilliant. And I'm floored by some of the stuff he says. One of the things that, I like what you said, unlimited amount of money. well, I believe he is he is credited with terming this. And I've heard him talk about these four levels in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
And he says he didn't make them up. He's like, I got it from the Bible, so I'm not going to say I've made them up, but he gave them names. And so there's
Yep.
like four levels. And let me see if I get them right. You have the implementation level, you have the
Mm-hmm.
unification level, you have the communication level, and then you have the imagination level.
Yep.
And so each one of those has a certain value they have in the marketplace. Implementation might be, anything you do with your hands, right? Anything you do with your hands. Unification is the idea of management. Communication is using your words, and imagination is where entrepreneurship comes from. You think of something in your head and you do it, right? And it's that imagination level that comes with the unlimited resource, because there is no cap. Each one of
Yeah.
those other levels has a cap that the market has said it has a cap to it. But
Right.
your imagination, nobody can put a cap on your imagination because it's yours,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
There's no cap going into that. And so even if you just look that up, right? The four levels. I think I'm getting the wording wrong there. I don't know if you know exactly what it is.
Yeah, it's not levels that he used, but I mean your point. Like you're sharing the point of it, though, right? And so again, whoever is listening, go to YouTube and type in Myron Golden. This brother has so many resources out there, in all forms, from 30 seconds to 35 minutes, right? And just listen to some of this, right? Like I'm telling you, Ruth Abigail, I probably listened to him daily for about 4 months.
Wow.
And it was early on in the start of our business. And when I tell you, like, God was just using his narrative, his message from the gospel, from the book, to like fuel me and to help me unlearn some of that stuff,
Yeah.
right? Some of this stuff that was, in my mind, biblical,
Yep. Yep.
right? And God said, you got to get all of it, right? Like, and here's the deal: two things can be true.
That's right.
Two things can be true. The love of money is the root of all evil. True.
True.
And sometimes we put stuff in the name of prosperity gospel, and it's just a gospel. So when Jesus says in Matthew 6:33, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added. Now, some people will say, well, those things have nothing to do with money and possessions and all that. No. It doesn't say what the things are. So some of the things might be joy and peace, and some of the things may be, increased income,
Yep.
business ideas.
Yep.
And I've opened myself to all of that and not just limiting it to the fruit of the spirit.
Yep.
I just need more humility, God. And I do every day. And watch this. And if God also uses his business to a point where my daughter wanted, Sydney, I can say that, Sydney uh, wanted to do a learning program in Taiwan.
Yeah.
She got accepted in the whole nine, but still it was like a cost. And it was like I don't know, it was a cost. And Sydney was, even before applying for it, Ruth Abigail, because she's been raised by her dad for 15, 16 years in the nonprofit space. She was like, I would really like to do this, but I know we can't afford it. And so now I've already started the business, but I'm not talking to them about what we're doing financially. I'm just saying, like, man, this business is going well, right? But she's still stuck on 15 years of, well, baby, I really wish we could do that, but we can't. I really wish you could experience this, but it's not in our budget. I really wish. And so she wants to do this thing, but also is like, she's also don't even want to like put me into this. Like, she don't want me to have to say I can't do it.
Yeah.
I said, maybe apply for it. And she said, well, there are some scholarship opportunities. I said, okay, do both. She gets in the program. She doesn't get the scholarship. She calls me disappointed. I said, sweetie, don't sweat it. We got it. She said, no, Dad, like, I don't want y'all to have to, sweetie, don't sweat it. We got it.
Wow.
Like, to not have the ability to do that for 15 years
Wow.
and to have the ability to send your daughter off to grow and develop and to pursue her career, I wouldn't trade that for anything, Ruth Abigail.
How did it feel to say we got it?
Such a blessing,
Mm.
right? It felt as good as when I wasn't making as much money and, we might have a kid in streets, it was the little things that would just, oh, success.
Yes.
But like, we long for little things sometimes from kids to see their growth and their development or them to make the right choice. And as good as that felt, this felt that good too. Like it was like, God, thank you.
Yeah.
That you have placed in my hands the opportunity to not only make a difference in the lives of people with the work that we do, not only provide even opportunities for others now to do this with us. Thank you, Myron Golden. But now to be able to do for my daughters things that I had not been able to do up until I became an entrepreneur of a for-profit business. Let me say it that way.
Yes. Yes. Now I want to pivot to what you do. Talk, like tell us a little bit about Uplift, what it is that the company does, and what why it's been successful, you think.
Yeah. Okay. So Uplift is a coaching and consulting organization. Our mission is to help individuals and organizations become the best versions of themselves possible. And we do that through DEI leadership training, right? I'm convinced that individuals become better with folks who are different than them, then they become even better because you can become better with folks who are just like you. But like I can tell you my personal journey has been I've grown more from folks who thought differently than me, who
Mm.
believe differently than me, who look differently than me, than somebody who looks, talks, thinks exactly the same way I do.
Yep.
And so, but it's getting people to understand that because there is going to be a level of discomfort. But if I want to get stronger, I don't get stronger sitting on the sofa. I get stronger by getting up and doing something that I haven't been doing, which is some form of exercise. And typically, if I have not been exercising and I start exercising, I'm going to feel uncomfortable.
Yep.
There is going to be a level of discomfort that comes with it. But if I embraced it and the discomfort, engage it, and don't say, oh, that was uncomfortable, I'm not going to do that anymore. No, like I got to stick with it. And so we've been able to connect with some clients who I will say are genuinely concerned about diversity and inclusion. And our philosophy around it has been successful. And it's as simple as this. We don't go in, we're not lecturers, right? We're not about to get up for 3 hours and just hit you with 40 slides. That's not who we are. Our sessions are really interactive and we engage people. And, it's not always easy, but that's what we do and how we do it. And we've been, really blessed. And I'll tell you one of my sweet moments, and I've had a few, but I'm in a rural place in South Carolina. You've been there.
I have.
I'm in a very rural area in South Carolina. And actually, before I get to the town that I'm going to present, about 10 minutes, 15 minutes outside of that town is a town with I don't know, like a 10x6 Confederate flag in the center of the town. And I'm like, okay, here I am. uh, but I get in there the next morning and I'm facilitating with this group of leaders. And there was a gentleman who, when I first met, and look, this is the work, right? Like I have my own biases, right? But when I first met him, I thought he had a kind of tough looking face. He didn't seem to be very engaging with me. And so we start the session, and we're about three-quarters of a way through it. He raises his hand and he says, Reggie, I got to be honest. It sounds like everything you've been sharing today around diversity and inclusion, and it sounds like the gospel.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
I said, thank you. Because I've actually been questioned, Ruth Abigail, a number of times by Christians who will ask me, how do you do this? How do you lead diversity and inclusion work as a pastor? Right? And and for me, I kind of go like, I see it all throughout the gospel. I see it all throughout the life of Christ, his life in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John on the earth, walking, talking, engaging with people. Like it's all in there to me. But there are others who feel like, no, that is completely anti the gospel.
Yeah, that is beautiful. And that's beautiful. I think I'm hesitating from going in a particular direction just because I don't want us to go off on that because we can. But
Okay.
but I would love to know how the DEI world, right? One thing I love about entrepreneurs is so many that I talk to didn't necessarily have a plan to become one. Like it just kind of it just kind of happened, right? And on top of that, didn't necessarily have not only did they not have a plan to become an entrepreneur, but an entrepreneur doing what they're doing, right? So there are a lot of people who somehow find themselves um, starting a business, and starting a business is something that for some people they've had no connection to before in the past, or they've had very little connection to and they just kind of like jumped into it, or just never thought about it. So I would love to know that journey for you. Like, you've kind of shared it a little bit earlier, that DEI path wasn't something you've ever thought about, certainly doing a business around. But
Mm-hmm.
kind of how did you kind of come to the point where you said, okay, this is the work that I'm going to do? You also said earlier that you felt like this is the work you were born to do, which is a huge statement. But
Yeah.
it's not something you expected to find. Um, and you didn't expect to become an entrepreneur in it. So what what has it been like to run into this, like, and now thrive in it?
So part of that question, right, it goes back to, and I can now look back and I understand some things that just felt like life to me, right? But now I go, oh, God had a plan. Like I couldn't explain it, but like it goes back to the first day of kindergarten to me. I don't know if I ever, even though I took you out of Hughes, I don't know if I told you this story, but in my town there was a train track, obviously not functioning anymore, but there was a train track where most of the black folks lived on one side, most of the white folks lived in another area, right? And it really was like an inverted Oreo. It was like most of the white people were on both sides of the town, and the black folks lived kind of in this central area. And so I never played with a white kid until the first day of kindergarten. Uh, and I walk into the classroom. I'm playing with two young black boys from my community. We went to the same daycare together, and this white kid walks over. He asked if he could play with us. I said yes, without even thinking about it. I just said yes. And my two black friends were like, "No, he can't play with us." And we kind of went back and forth. I don't know how many times, but they ended up saying like, "If you play with him, you can't play with us." I wish I could tell you right now why I said, "Okay, come on, let's play," but I did, right? And that literally became the story of my life from kindergarten even until this day, right? Like I started seeing these patterns, right? And there's so many more in there, but I'll just tell you that was part of it. But what I also recognized when I got married, or before I got married, that like I was real passionate about bringing people together in terms of race and ethnicity. But I had issues around the LGBTQ plus community
Mm,
as well as other religions. So I'm bringing black and white Christians together, or trying to. But now, if you something else and you don't fit into that this Christian bubble, I was doing the Heisman to you, right? But all through that process, one, my wife kind of called me up, honestly, and called, noticed something and called me up, and I did like most human beings do. I got defensive, and you know, and I love to tell you, when God really started dealing with me on it, my eyes came open that it just happened like that, but it didn't. Right? It took some time, like some years with Abigail, of me struggling with some of this. But I, man, I'll say this: God wouldn't let it go. And now I look back and I go, oh, but now I know what I struggled with, right? And so as a individual who had his own biases and was unaware of them, when I say you couldn't tell me I wasn't a good person,
Yeah.
and yeah, I may not agree with something, but I didn't think I discriminated. I didn't think I had bias. But now I can look back and go, no, I discriminated against some folks.
Mm.
I had bias towards some people. And now when I run into individuals who can't see their bias, guess what?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
I don't get frustrated. I don't get pissed off. Okay, hey, no problem. I get it. I've been there, and what's crazy is it's almost like ministry. When look, I'm not telling people you got to tell your whole story and tell everything about you, but like when people see that like you're not perfect, because look, that's the way it is. When you're the DEI facilitator, it's like you know more than everybody else, and you don't have a problem. Nope, time out. I might know more than you. I may have had a few more experiences because I've actually engaged it. But let me tell you, man, I got a past and I still got a present, and I'm trying to have a better future.
That's good.
So let me try to help you understand how that works, and if I can support you in that, right? If I can support you in your journey, man, our team would love to do that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I answered the full question, but
No, you did. I didn't. I don't think I did know that story about you in kindergarten. I think that's beautiful. My dad has a very similar. We talked about this. Y'all
mm,
are eerily similar. It always freaked me out.
yeah,
But it's a very similar thing, like in grade school. And I think sometimes like when people are trying to discern whether or not the entrepreneurial path is for them or this idea for them to pursue is for them, it's crazy because oftentimes, I mean, how often is it that we it comes all the way back to
mm,
childhood? You know what I
mm,
mean? Where it's there is something in my childhood that is connecting to this idea, and I wouldn't have I would not have come with it on my own. It's been through experiences and this season of life where it's just everything's colliding, and then you have to make a decision on what I'm going to do with it. Um, I
mm,
love that. I think that that happens so often with a lot of people,
yeah,
probably with more people than they know. Than it's probably more people than we would ever know because I also think there's a lot of people that don't answer that call, if you will. Like I
yeah,
don't aren't willing to accept that or dismiss it as just a oh that's interesting, oh wow, I've never thought about it like that, and just keep on going. But then
yeah.
there are those handful of people who decide to do something with it.
All right, so I'm going to try to share something without sharing too much because I'm actually like 25 pages into a book.
Okay, all right, okay,
But
yes.
the point, right? Like I believe this, right? Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans that I have for you, saith the Lord. Now, I believe that is for every single human being. That God has a plan for every single human being. Whether they are born with some level of struggle in their life, whether it's, blindness or every human being, cerebral palsy, it doesn't matter. Every human being, God has a plan for. Now, I think the people in our lives, especially sometimes the adults in our lives, you may have something that's unique about you that doesn't fit into our boxes,
Yeah.
or they don't understand, or they don't know how to navigate themselves. And so this gift that God has placed in us sometimes is chastised, right? And I'll actually use a story of a young man. He would always climb trees, fences, in the house, bookshelves, and all this stuff. He loved climbing, and like, let's be honest, and I just get real. Like, typically in the black community, if you always climbing on bookshelves and the sofas and the trees and falling and getting hurt, what are we gonna do? Boy, get your butt down. You know, stop climbing, stop doing all this. You know, because that's not what you ought to be doing, right? And so one day the young man was climbing and the mom was getting furious, and her neighbor said, "Have you ever taken him to the climbing gym down the street?" And she was like, "Climbing gym?" And he was like, "Yeah, he loves to climb. Let him go climb." Right? So she takes him down there, and he's a natural.
Wow.
He's a natural. So, I spent a year with Memphis Rocks in the rock climbing world.
Yep.
This young man was a 16-year-old African-American kid from North Carolina, and had a shoe contract to climb. He was a professional climber at the age of 16, going around the world, climbing all these crazy things and getting paid for it. Here was this thing inside of him that he couldn't explain, mama couldn't explain, and thought, like, why won't he just sit his butt down? And somebody said, wait a minute, unleash that.
Man, that's good.
Fan that flame. And sometimes we just need to be unleashed. Our flame needs to be fanned.
That is that's a powerful story. How do you unlearn holding people back?
Practice makes perfect. And I'm not even joking. I've been practicing legitimately the last, let me see, my city's 23, the last 8 years probably, getting out of, unlearning, holding them back.
Yeah.
Because again, we're creatures of habit, we're products of our environment, and even the stuff sometimes I wish my parents wouldn't da 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 da. We end up doing it ourselves. we just do. Well, I turned out all right, so it must be okay. Now, truth be told, I did turn out all right, and yet,
Yeah.
there are some things that probably I shouldn't do to my children just because my parents did it to me, right? And Ruth Abigail, this is connected back to our life together in streets. I will never forget one day sitting in a meeting, and we're talking about kids, and I was probably the one leading the way on giving some kid a little more grace, right? And some other folks like, man, no, we need to blah, blah, blah. And I was like, hey, maybe we should give them a little more grace. And I didn't say anything to y'all in that moment, but I promise you I heard the Spirit of God say, man, what if you did that to your own children?
Oh. Wow.
Because you know what? In my mind, these kids, these young people, they don't have this and they don't have this, and we should probably give them a little more grace. Well, my kids, on the other hand, you got mom and dad at home, you got grandparents, you got da 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 da. You need to be da 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 da.
Yes. Oh wow.
And God was like, man, if you would give your girls the same grace you give the kids in streets, I think they will be better off. Wow. And you know what? The truth is, I started doing that more, and it took time. And sometimes I'll be in the middle of saying something, and I give them some grace. I would like literally here, give them some grace right here. But it took some time, and now I'm having conversations with my girls that I never even imagined I would be having with them, and like because we have that relationship now, right? And I think it has freed them to be who they are meant to be. And and I'm trying to get out of God's way of his purpose in their life and not mine.
This is my problem talking to you, Reggie, because first of all, we have hit none of our questions on this list. And I told you before we started, I was like, I knew this was gonna happen, but I thought we'd at least get to one or two. But which we still will, because I want to get some I want to get practical here, but I so appreciate you have always been a person who I have seen uh the belief in your life.
Hmm.
You're not someone who just talks about it. You do walk it. I see it. Um and so this whole conversation has been just evidence of I'm going to live what I believe. Like, and this is what it's done, and it's like, man, it's so refreshing. And we could I got the we'll save it for another podcast, the questions that are in my head right this second, because I do want to get practical about this
Nope.
entrepreneurship journey, for people who are thinking about it and might want to venture into it, who feel this like, I think I might need to do this. I want to talk to two groups of people. Those folks, and then also people who maybe aren't in a space where they're ready to jump and leap
Hmm.
into an adventure, but maybe they want to uh execute on an idea within the context of their situation right now. That's a little entrepreneurial. That's a little
Hmm.
risky. And
Yeah.
so, both talking about those people, I want to know, what are the biggest misconceptions
Hmm.
that you have had about starting this that you can kind of warn people about?
Yeah. Ooh, even when you sent over some questions and I saw that one, I was like, oh my gosh, like that one, like maybe like tighten up a little bit. Um, but truthfully, my biggest misconception, or one of the misconceptions that I struggled with the most, was like that I could do it.
Okay. Huh.
I thought entrepreneurs, is one thing to have an entrepreneurial spirit and do a nonprofit. That's one thing, right? Because like you still have this safety net that you sort of lean in on or something, right?
Yep.
But to say, no, I'm stepping out and I'm going to go start this and this is what I'm going to do. And, it was just a fear, or I didn't think I could do it. That is a misconception that I'm not good enough.
Mm.
And that was like overcoming that honestly was huge for me. And the other piece, I want to be very careful how I say this, because I have put in a lot of time and effort to grow the business, the concepts of the business. But man, I started this. I didn't have a website. I mean, I didn't have a Instagram, no kind of social media.
Yep.
I went out there with what was in my head and what was in my heart, and I had typed up a few pages just so I could have something to present. I didn't have any decks. When I first started, I didn't have a slide deck to like, oh, let's pull up the slide deck. I didn't have a logo. Like, so there's a part of me that goes like, listen, I'm not telling everybody to start off this way.
That's good.
But let's be honest though. I got like a little history of not doing things in a traditional manner. If you think about me asking Kim to marry me before we went on a date,
Just a little bit. Yeah, just a little bit.
but I did believe. But I think that's a misconception that you gotta have this perfect plan though, right? And
Yes.
I don't know if you have to have a perfect plan, but what you do need to have is a belief in what you have,
Mm.
right? Like I knew I believed that diversity, equity, and inclusion could make our world a better place. Like I'm telling you, I believe that more than like I believe that as much as I believe that Jesus is the reason for life. I'm about to say Jesus is the reason for the season, but for life. But I believe that because I do believe it is in essence, it's the gospel, right? And me understanding someone and not agreeing with them can happen, right? Like I want to understand somebody even if I don't agree with them.
Yes.
And so that, this idea that I got to have it all together and have it perfect. No, but what you need is like you better have a why, right? You better believe in what you say you believe. And a number of times, I got to say this, a number of times I go out and I speak with clients and they'll say like, man, I know that you believe what you're talking about.
Wow.
Like that is one of the biggest compliments somebody could give me is like when you speak about whatever you're speaking about, man, like I have no doubt. And even if I didn't believe it, I had to like pause and go like, man, you got me thinking about this now
Yeah.
because you sounded so secure in that this can change all of our lives.
Mm.
So again, the misconception is like one that you're not good enough or that you don't have what it takes. Maybe that's not everybody, but there are some folks out there who might be thinking that. That's a misconception. Second one is you don't have to have everything perfectly aligned, right? But I think you do need to be committed to your why.
So I wanna that second one, right? The you don't have to have a full plan to start. I don't know how many people get stuck on that. Like I
Mm,
think that is such a real thing. And what I found is that a lot of that is just it's a mask for fear, right? Like so I'm gonna keep planning because I'm afraid to start. So I'm just gonna keep planning and planning and I'm gonna get my logo together. I'm gonna do this, which is nothing wrong with doing that.
mm-hmm.
But I like the phrase. I just said it the other day for some reason. You know, um, done is better than perfect because perfect never gets done, right?
Ooh,
Um,
I'm writing that down.
and I think it's such a real. It's that it's that paralyzing fear of I'm not sure. I don't know if I'm good enough, so I'm gonna plan. And that's and instead of doing,
Mm,
right? Um, I found that it's really difficult. I use the industry as an example. We we did a thing that we didn't expect to keep doing, but we did a thing, and once we decided we were going to keep going on it, the next thing we did was plan. Right? We did
mm,
planned, and I don't think that was the wrong thing to do. We planned and we kind of did at the same time, right? A little bit like you were doing. What was really interesting though is the more we did, the more the
come on.
plans evolved, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
when you're doing all this front work of planning, when you actually get into it, you might realize that the plan that you had without very much experience is gonna shift once you get the experience. And what you don't want to do is be so committed to a plan in your head that you don't allow it to
Mm,
evolve because of experience, right?
yeah, yes.
And so, as you are going through this, I want to know what you would say are some very key traits, character traits that are important to have as an entrepreneur in order to get to that place where you're saying, okay, because I mean, it's an ongoing evolution. I mean, it is things as you continue to work and move and meet people and get the results and have some successes, have some failures. You hear feedback, right? I mean, my goodness, when you're working with people and doing any kind of service work, you're going to get feedback, and so you have to then respond to the feedback, and that might mean your plans have to change.
Mm.
And so, what are some important character traits for people who are interested in going down this road based on those realities?
So I am in the middle of listening to a book right now, right? And they gave this sort of a definition, but a description of trust. And really, I think becoming an entrepreneur is about building trust and trusting yourself.
Yeah.
Because in order for somebody else to trust you, we're talking about starting a business. In order for somebody else to trust you got to trust yourself. So they say think of trust in terms of a triangle. At the top of it is authenticity. If you're gonna start a business, I think authenticity is required, like being honest about who you are, where you are, what you can do, what you cannot do,
Yep.
right? But this and being transparent about that, right? That authenticity is significant. I believe in becoming an entrepreneur. The other leg of that is logic. You
Yep.
you better know something, right? Like I hope you're a lifelong learner of whatever the business is that you are doing. Learn as much as you can about it. But the number of podcasts, books, videos that I ingest now, right? I thought I was ingesting some stuff before.
Yeah.
I really did, but like now it's like it's even more like, give me, I need more, I need more, I need more, I need more. So having a knowledge base and being sound and knowing what you're talking about and intellectual about your whatever your business is, do that. And then the other part of it is empathy. And I know that may not sound, like what does that have to do with being an entrepreneur? At some point as an entrepreneur, you got to have customers or clients. Like otherwise you're a person out there just selling nothing, right? But like developing empathy for those who you are trying to serve at some level, right? I think is necessary, and these are all things that we can develop, right? We can grow, and we should always continue to grow and develop each one of those. My authenticity, my logic, as well as my empathy towards others.
Man, that's the logic thing is really it's and I laugh at this because again, since 2020, 2020 really did birth a lot of entrepreneurs out of need, which is a great thing. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's a great opportunity, right? Um, but it's also really interesting because a lot of people got into specifically this kind of information, this space of particularly coaching and consulting,
Yep.
right? That kind of blew up during that season. But what's
Yep.
interesting is it's like a lot of people that be coaching and consulting don't really know as much as they think they know because
No.
they really haven't built up the experience or the knowledge base, not just knowledge, but I mean experience to tell people about the thing that they're talking about. But a lot of people you could talk if you could talk good, you could make a little money for a little bit.
Yep.
Um, but at some point, the cat's gonna get out the bag that your knowledge stops here because you really don't have a ton of experience to go off of. And so I think that's such an important thing, like the know, like not just what you know coming in, but what you're willing to continue to get to learn.
Yeah.
What you
Yeah.
have to continue to learn. It's not just about what you know right now, but what is your learning system like, your learning rhythm like. Um, Things change all the time, and if you are not up to date on that, you're going to become irrelevant pretty
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah.
And you can't be irrelevant and stay in business. And
Yep.
you see that. I mean, you see that from the biggest companies in the world, right? That were on top, and they
Yeah.
stopped learning and became irrelevant.
I think about Blockbuster, right?
Mm,
They had the lockdown on DVDs,
locked down.
right? And then here comes this little company called Netflix, and they're trying to compete, mailing folks DVDs in the mail that folk like me ain't returning and getting charged anyway. But Netflix said, "Whoa, this streaming thing, right?" And I've read that you know Blockbuster had the opportunity to do it
Get in on it. Yep.
and said, "Nah, we the kings over here are selling hard copy DVDs, renting them out." Okay, they no longer exist,
Man, God.
right? They no longer exist. And the willingness to evolve, again, even with this word came up before, right? The willingness to evolve, one, it still requires a level of authenticity, right? Logic, and sometimes empathy within ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, right? Because, man, it is hard for me as a man sometimes to acknowledge when I'm wrong.
Yeah.
It, even to this day, I'm 49.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, like a lot of people are like, oh, you one of the most humble guys I met. I was like, if you only knew. Like, like it's a wrestling, right? Like, but to acknowledge that I don't know it all, that I need to keep learning, I need to keep growing, I need to not only to read books, but I need to talk to people
Yep.
and listen to sometimes why somebody's a perspective on something is different,
Yep.
even in business, right? So, I've got a team now, and we've got a few facilitators who go out on behalf of us.
Yep.
And when they come back, now look, I will tell you, I've learned to listen to every bit of advice somebody brings to me
Yeah.
and not dismiss it. And yet I'm still gonna pray about it and be like, God, is this it? Is this you or is this them?
Sure.
But that requires a level of empathy, and that's still within my business to hear what a teammate is sharing, what they experience,
Mm.
and man, was this a one time occurrence or is this something that man we might need to uh, iterate what we're doing so that it reaches people differently.
Mm.
You know.
That's that's huge. That's a and that is you have that humility factor comes. I mean, you have to be, I think I heard someone say one of the greatest things that permission one of the greatest permissions that people can give themselves is to disagree with their former selves.
Mm, that's
Um,
good.
you want to, like, it's okay to disagree with yourself, right? Because we so often particularly with that authenticity factor, it's like, well, I said this 5 years ago, right? And this was who I was
Good.
5 years ago, and now I something's shifting and changing, and I'm a little nervous because now I don't
Ooh,
want people to think I'm fake. I don't want people to think I didn't, I wasn't real. But it's okay, right? It's okay. And I honestly, that's part of the unlearning process, because that's kind of where the slogan, gain the courage to change your mind. You have to, that takes courage, especially when you've been out there as one thing, and now something has changed, and you got to present yourself as something different but still authentic. um that's tough. That's
yes, it is.
you know?
That's a good quote. I'm writing that one down too because like even when you said it, I was like, yep, I've experienced that. Like recently. Like, oh man, I used to think and believe and feel this way and I'm still wrestling with some stuff right now. Like right now, I'm wrestling with some things because I've always thought this was right in the way. And now it's like, okay, God,
And that's who.
maybe that wasn't the way. It was a way, but it wasn't the way. And so, yeah, that having the courage to change your former mind. Look, I gotta say this. You were talking about from a framework of entrepreneurs, and um, man, I wish I had wrote that down. But what I took from it, because I can't remember exactly what you said, but it was this evolution piece again, like who we are becoming, right? And as an entrepreneur, that idea around logic on who we are becoming, and it was in reference to having the plan all together, right? And sometimes people are waiting, and really maybe it's fear. But like I think sometimes we focus so much on being, like because there's something about a state of being. It says I'm here, I've arrived, versus saying, man, I'm on this path that's ever evolving, and it actually speaks back to this being able to change your mind too. Because if I'm becoming right, I'm always in motion. I'm always in growth. I'm always in development. And like I haven't arrived anywhere yet. It's like, man, because I'm telling you, like I'm not even sure what God has completely for me, but I still think I'm just scratching the surface of whatever that is. And at 49 to say that and really authentically believe that, I'm just scratching the surface of what he has planned for me, what I am becoming.
That's
Whew,
exciting. That's
that is
that's
so exciting.
that's exciting. Like, and I think hopeful for a lot of people who are younger than that. I think that a
Mm,
lot um a lot of a lot of people, especially in this current generation, there's this itch for the arrival at 25, 26,
mm,
7, even more so than it was when we were growing up because of everything that we're seeing. And to hear someone saying, even just shy of 50, i'm I'm just scratching the surface, it's like it gives hope for people who are like struggling to answer the question of my why at 22. Hey,
mm.
it's okay. Like,
Yeah,
you're not, it's okay. You don't have to know the why right now. Just continue on the journey of becoming. And you don't know what you're gonna run into. I mean, you ran into
yeah.
entrepreneurship. You didn't know you were running into that,
And
but you were also running into a different degree of prosperity. You were running into a different degree of being able to provide for your family. You were running into, all these different this it's just all these different things that you didn't know came with that becoming piece. And I
mm,
just hope that it gives hope to people who are worried that they've
mm.
missed it.
Yeah.
And you haven't missed it, man. Like,
No, 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 no. Oh, so grateful, right? You know, Ruth Abigail, I told you in 2019, my friend Mark called me and said, hey, I recommended you to my GM. Now, what was interesting, really interesting to me, is probably 2 to 4 weeks before he calls me, I remember it was in the fall and I was cleaning out the garage. I kind of do a spring cleaning, fall cleaning. I was cleaning out the garage and got my music going. And it's just one of those moments when I'm working, I can like just think and talk. And I remember thinking, man, my baby is graduating in the spring. And man, I've been really grateful for this nonprofit journey I've been on. I remember thinking this out loud to him and it just kind of just, but I don't know how I'm going to do the next phase of life for us. Like on this nonprofit salary, I don't know how I'm going to pay for 3 colleges. I don't know how I'm going to pay for my daughters to get married based on what, and we have a good life. I'm not complaining, right? Hear me. I was not complaining, but I was just like, man, but we're just making all the ends meet right now.
mm,
So how can we take on college tuition? How can we pay for a wedding someday? Not to mention like our savings in retirement ain't great.
yeah,
And I was just like, but God, if this is what you have for me, okay. But like you're gonna have to do something. I remember thinking you're gonna have to do something in terms of this other stuff, but I want to be committed to you and your plan. And that's when my guy called me, and even then I didn't think that was God talking.
right, right,
Not
right.
in this, I was like, no, no, man, I can't do this. But man, God opened that door, um, and allowed me to do something that I I had been doing since I was in kindergarten. Look, I don't know if I told you this. I initiated the first integrated prom in Hughes High School.
No, I man, you may have, but
Nope.
it's been so long. Yeah, but talk about that. That's
I mean, so my junior year, I was liked by all, like, for the most part, most students like me, black, white, rich, poor, it didn't matter. Like they like Reggie. And I was like, look, guys, let's have one prom this year because our town, our school had been having a black prom and a white prom. And I was like, let's look, we're friends. We're in class together every day. Like, let's have one prom. And so 1993 was the first integrated prom in the history of my high school. So like I've been doing this, right? You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Been doing it.
It's in you. It's in you. I as we wrap up, man, I would love for you to talk to these folks who are either in a space of figuring of the space that you were in. Like I think you really hit it on the head. This honestly was not the direction that was planned for the conversation, man. But like
Not that.
it's exactly where we needed to go, um, because that question. I'm grateful for the journey that you put me on. Whatever that could be, the nonprofit space, it could be whatever space. It could be the church space. It could be the social services space. It could be a space where, let's be honest, the cap on your salary is lower than you'd like it to be. Okay,
Right. Right.
um, that's the individual that we want to talk to right
Okay.
now. Um, and saying, I'm so grateful for this, and I'm grateful for the time, and I'm grateful for the opportunities, and I'm not complaining. And I'm not sure how this next phase of life is looking. Like, what advice
Yeah.
can you give someone in that season right now?
Ruth Abigail, I'm going to repeat your words. Uh, you've got to cultivate your own courage before the courage. I think we need to, and again, this is me assuming that a number of folks who are listening to this have a level of faith, right? Christian faith, whatever the faith is, but like you believe that there's a higher calling. I call him God, right? Leading us and directing us as long as we want to be led and directed. Because he doesn't force us to do anything, right? But if you have a form of communication with him and you're asking, what is your will for my life? What are the plans that you have for me? And if the plan is for you to remain at the level of income for the rest of your life, be sure and very sure that that's God. That's all I'm saying, right? Just be sure and very sure that that's God saying that, and not you being afraid to do something different. One, I have learned that, I think I had a moment, all right, where I started to believe that maybe I don't have all the skill set and capability that folks who may be working at some corporation in Memphis has. And then I had a year where I was working with a good friend of mine, and I'm going to shout him out, Justin Casey, where we ended up in some really good conversations about, like, nah, I think I could go over to XYZ company and manage and lead and develop people just like I did here at this nonprofit. Because I do think we start to think like, nah, that's all we can do. No, I'm telling you now, if you are working at a nonprofit and leading and developing and managing, you can go lead, develop, and manage in corporate America too, and get paid more money even doing that. And I'm not asking people to leave the nonprofit sector, but what I am asking you to do is consider having a communication with whoever your God is about saying, is this what you have for me? Right? Because and again, if it's entrepreneurship, don't be afraid to change your mind, right? Don't be afraid to step out, to get out of the boat. Because, man, I'm telling you, Ruth Abigail, I can't go back.
Man,
I won't go back.
man.
Like, it would have to be God literally putting it on my heart, just like he did about this, to say, yep, that season is over. I need you to go back over here. But man, it'll be tough. I'll be like, God, you sure? You sure that's what you want from me? Because the freedom that I now have, and you said that word at the very beginning of this, so I got to go back to freedom. The freedom that I have now as an entrepreneur to say, oh, you want to go to, and not just because of money, you want to go to Little Rock for 3 days? Okay, let's go. I don't have 3 weeks, 4 weeks that I got to manage for the whole year anymore. My life is my life now. If I want to work 20 straight weeks, 40 straight weeks, I can do that. But if I say, I'm going to take the next 3 weeks and I'm just going to work from home, I don't have to ask for somebody's permission for my schedule, my time anymore. That's hard to go to give up.
It's hard to give up.
And the truth is, I don't think God's gonna make me get it up. I just don't.
It's hard to give up. I can imagine it's hard to give up. And also, you knowing that, the way that the going back to your triangle, the empathy you have for people has got to have risen. So even if you
Mm,
were to go back, I
yep.
doubt you would lead people the same
Oh
because
my
they
God.
have the same expectations, right? Because of this experience, like you want people to be free too.
Seriously. Like, if I was to go back to corporate, I'm telling you, it would look different. It would look so different. And I would make the most of it.
Yep.
Because because I already, like, I will tell you this, and I don't even know if I should say this on a recording. If I go back to corporate America, the level that I expect to be going back to is still going to be a lot of freedom,
Amen.
and it's going to be a pretty decent income. And I will use my ability or authority or whatever level I have to try to create the same change that I've been trying to create everywhere else I've been. Oh, now I get to do it in maybe a Fortune 500 company. Okay, let's do it.
Let's go. Let's
So,
go.
you
Man,
know,
you answered the last question I had before but I'm gonna ask it again because this is kind of a question I like to ask everyone is
okay.
how have you become more free as a result of unlearning?
Oh man, the journey of being unlearned, right, and unlearning has so I can't, like, putting the context of the freedom, putting a narrative around it. I don't even have the words. Like, I think my girls see a difference in me. I know Kim sees a difference in me. You know, I'm a bivocational person, right? So I'm a pastor of a church, and I've worked for somebody, and now I'm working for me. But even the freedom to actually pastor better,
Oh wow. Yeah.
right? Like, because I own my schedule now. It's not like, well, I got to go here from 8 to 6 or 8 to 5, and then I can. No, no, no. If I want to go see a church member at 9 a.m.,
Yeah. Yeah.
I have that freedom and flexibility. And so, just when I think about my life in general, it is me living out Luke 4:18, because Christ has came to set the captive,
Yeah.
right? I was captive here.
Mm,
I was captive with my time.
mm,
I was captive with the way I navigated the world. And now he has set this captive free.
mm.
And who he sets free,
Come on.
man, I'm free indeed. And I love every minute of it.
Oh man, Reggie, dog, this has been such a refreshing conversation, man. Like,
Yeah.
I really hope that the people that are listening to this feel the realities of what it looks like to get out of your own way
Mm,
and like and really do the thing that you are probably afraid to do,
mm,
and not and really grab hold of that becoming journey. Like, allow
yeah.
yourself to become and see where it leads you, and
Yeah.
don't stop in your tracks because what you see in front of you isn't what you thought you would see. Um, and so I hope that this is a awesome picture of that, man. You have given me, energy, and I love, even though I've known you for almost 15 years, which is still wild.
Yes.
Just, even in this season, learning about where you are right now, man, has just been. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being transparent, and honest. And I'm just excited about where you're going. This is awesome.
Look, I love you like a sister. And I don't even say that a lot to people like that, but I do. I love you like a sister. You are an amazing young lady. This podcast even that you're doing, like man, me and Kim will listen to it together at times, and sometimes I'll, especially on flights and stuff, I'll make sure I find it in the airport. But I'm so proud of you, what you are accomplishing, and uh, our journey together is still not done. So I'll say it that way. Our journey together is still not done.
No, man, you already know. So tell folks where they can find you, how they can connect with you, maybe get involved in what you do.
Yeah. So you can go to our website is uplift-cc.com. That's www dot uplift uplift-cc, which is coaching and consulting.com. I'm not even going to give you our social media handles just yet because I'll come back and give you something on that because we're actually partnering with, I'm so proud to say we're partnering with Unapologetic.
Dope.
Yeah. So we're partnering with Unapologetic. We're working on some branding and some marketing that's going to be released later this year. And so all of that will be tightened up and we'll actually have some content out there.
That's all.
Right now it's like, don't look at it.
Oh, that's good, man. But they can still hire you though. Let's just be clear. You
Oh,
still
look.
still hire.
Yeah. Hey, go to the website. We are doing the work, right? I just don't have all the social media stuff tight yet, but the work we can help you out for
I love
sure.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, man, thank you for being here, and thank y'all for listening. And
Yes.
let's keep unlearning together so that we can experience more freedom.
Hmm.
If this helped you at all, um, make sure to share it. Don't keep it to yourself. Don't be selfish out there, man. Be generous. You know what I'm saying? Go and
Hmm.
share it with somebody else. And let us know how it's impacted you. So let's keep on learning together. We can experience more freedom, and we will see y'all next week. Peace.